how much do I need to retire on in New Zealand? A good rule of thumb is sort of think about once your mortgage is paid off and you've got it all worked out, 80% of your income. But if that's too hard and you don't necessarily want to sit down and break it down, just think about what would you feel comfortable a week. Usually the figure sits around $60,000 tax paid a year for a couple. Might not seem like a lot, but it sort of gets people in a comfortable position, allows them to travel, allows them to pay for the things that they need. And usually when you get into retirement, what happens is for the first part of your 60s, you do a lot more things, and as you get older, you do a lot less. So you're spending more at the start, spending less later. The second thing is, where is that income going to come from? Well, the first place you'll look, and most people are aware of, is New Zealand pension or New Zealand superannuation. And there's different criteria, there's different tiers of income that you'll get depending on your circumstances. So step one is if you're single, living alone, you get $22,721 after tax. If you're sharing with someone else, $20,973. If you're one partner but the other one doesn't qualify and you're not going to include them, then you get $17,478. If you both qualify, you get $34,955. And then the final thing is if you've got one partner that qualifies and the other is included, then that's $33,225. So step one, how much income do you need? Step two, where's that income going to come from? Step three, there's going to be a bit of a gap, especially if we're working towards the $60,000. Where is the rest of that money going to come from if super isn't enough? And for super, you can exist on it, but it's pretty hard to live on. So then it's like, well, what are the common vehicles that New Zealanders will use to achieve the amount that they want in retirement and so they can fund the income and enjoy their life? Well, first one people go to is rental property. So if you're looking at rental property, you look at total value of the portfolio, and usually you get an income after tax of between 2 and 3%. So if you think about it, if you got $1 million, that could equate to anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000 after tax, which, you know, you think about it, maybe that's one house in Auckland, or maybe you have to build up your portfolio a little bit more to get the outcome that you want. But that's usually a good rule of thumb. After maintenance, after costs, and after tax, you're usually looking about an income between 2 and 3%. The con of that is you're not really retired, you're still juggling tenants, you're still involved, so you're a little bit tied to it, and the income isn't as high as what you might get in a managed fund. Now the second one is a managed fund, which is like KiwiSaver, except you can access the money. You can use KiwiSaver in retirement, and the good rule of thumb is you can take about 6% each year, and the capital value will last 25 to 30 years. So if you have $1 million, you can take out $60,000 a year after tax. That lasts 20 to 30 years. So one, you don't have the stress of tenants. Two, you can take out more. Problem is you're not necessarily preserving the capital for your kids, but you can give them the house. They'll be okay. The third one is term deposits. On the surface, looks pretty good. You're thinking between 2 and 3% before tax, but then after tax, because it's quite tax inefficient, the interest that you earn is treated as income. So you take off the tax, then you take off inflation, and in real terms, which is after tax, fees, and inflation, quite often the purchasing power of your money is decreasing over time. So you get the nominal value, which is after tax and fees, being positive. So it looks okay on paper, but in reality, the cost of living is increasing faster than what you can keep up with it. And when you get to 80, your income that you're taking out of it is a bit of a problem. And then if you're locking in term deposits, then how do you roll that and what portion are you taking out? And it's comfortable, it's accessible, it's good for the short term, but the reality is for most retirement people, unless there's some baller with 100 million or substantial amount of sums invested in the bank, it's probably not going to work for you. The next piece to think about is, okay, out of all of those, what one's the best for me? Well, the trade-off with managed funds is that there's volatility. So with the bank, you have a fixed return you can rely on, but you're losing the purchasing power of your money over time. A managed fund, you outpace the cost of inflation and you can live off the 6%, but then it goes up and down over time, and can you handle that? Rental property, you preserve the capital for your family, so then they still have the value of the house that you could sell and give to them, but you're only getting between 2 and 3% in terms of income. And is that going to be sufficient? And are you really retired if you're still running over the different tenants? So out of all those recommendations, managed funds is what we use at OnePlan For Retirement. We do it all day of the week, have done it for 3 decades. So we look at managed funds in conjunction with KiwiSaver. You let it compound over time. You get nervous that will you reach the amount? But that's the 8th wonder of the world, compounding interest. So if you start sooner, you can get in a position where you've got a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. You try and get in the right level of volatility, that it's not too bumpy, that you can handle it, while also preserving the purchasing power over time. So in summary, income, got to work it out. 80% is usually a good call. Second one, where's the income going to come from? There's variation between the different NZ supers that you would get. Third piece is, if that's not enough, look to investment vehicles like rental property, term deposit, or managed funds. And we recommend managed funds over everything else.